Hello, hello, hello. What is up, everybody? Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be in the world. Today, we're going to do some art. Hey. Alright, let me get some things going. I do have my fan going on in the background, so please excuse any background noise that you may have. Alright, where did we leave off? What did we do? Where did we go? What are we doing? What the heck are we doing? So yeah, we are working on a concept from Bjorn Hurri. It is a demon general. Let me see if I can pull this up real quick, and then we'll get to talking. Hey yo. So, yeah. So this is the concept that we've been working on. It's from Bjorn Hurri's book called Abominations, and this is the demon general badass that we have been working on blocking out over the last couple of streams. If you have not seen any of the previous streams, you can go back and watch them if you'd like. They are at ZBrushLive.com, and you can go to my artist page and find any of the recent ones there. Or what you could do is you can go to the ZBrush, sorry, Pixologic YouTube channel, and they have a bunch of replays there. You have to sift through everything, but you can find it there. But you can also find a lot of other awesome artists that stream here too. So we've been working for a couple of streams. I think this is the fourth stream that we're working on beginning to block this character out. So this is where we left off last time. So we kind of are on the very beginnings of kind of just blocking out and getting the main shapes up and rolling. So let me just do a little bit of see-through here. So this is kind of where we're at. One of the first steps is to just get all the pieces in, get all of them set up and kind of working together, and then you start drilling down into details and stuff from there. So this is where we ended up last time. I did do a little bit of work offline over the last couple of weeks. I wanted to kind of do some stuff. The things that I did were the same methodologies as I've done here, and they were covered in the last couple of streams. So what I did is I just did some of that same stuff and just blocked out basically the rest of the major portions. So this is where I ended up after a little bit of that work. So same things, just blocked out the pieces, got them all into place. You can see it's still pretty rudimentary, but the overall form is starting to kind of take shape now. You can see a lot of stuff unfinished back here, obviously. So we're going to work on, taking some of the concept ideas and design motifs and trying to figure out what the back of this concept looks like, or the back of the character looks like. So a lot of these extra things that we did, like these little straps and the ropes and stuff, these ropes, what else did I do? I worked on the little secondary shapes in here. So you can see we can go back and forth. So I kind of refined some of the shapes on the edges here. Um, I did work on the undergarments a little bit. So it's just trying to figure out what the cloth and stuff is doing underneath to just make it a little bit more functional from all points of view. So we just kind of ran some of this same strapping kind of across, here and under the armpit. We actually have a cool one going down the legs here, and then we also let me just we also did some stuff back here as well. So we did some undergarments back here. We kind of did that. We added some, well, I keep saying we, but it's really me. There's nobody else that's working on this. So, um, so yeah, I added some of the armor plates that were in front to back here to just kind of repeat some of the motif because it feels like it was spiny and could work fairly well. What I wanted to do is I wanted to focus on some asymmetry um, in the back as well. So one of the cool things as a character artist is when you get such an amazing concept and you only have the front view. Um, the fun challenge is taking the design motifs from the concept in the front and then extending that to, fulfill two things. One is to feel like a complete cohesive design, um, but also to make it functional. So I'm going to redo the ropes back here, and I'm going to show you how I placed all these ropes. It's pretty quick and easy. I actually just grabbed there's a rope brush from a website called Bad King. It's actually a really old ZBrush, um, ZBrush, what would you call it? Things. Brushes and alphas and all kinds of stuff. They have those for free and for purchase. So check out bagking.com.au. I think it's Australia. But they have some stuff. So that's where I got this rope brush. Let's go to brush real quick. We are going to go into third party. See if this works. Oh, is it going to work? Do I have it in here? The question is, do I have it in here? I don't know if I have it in here. Oh no. I can use a different brush and show you. Um, let's just use, for now, we can use, if you have the beta testers brushes, if you go into that folder under brush, oh, there's an insert rope brush here, but there's also this really cool insert omni chain, and we'll just use that for a little while just to kind of switch it up a little bit. So I did this quite a bit. There's a little trick I have for placing curve brushes in a 3D space because sometimes it can be really tough. In particular for let's say for this one, if you're trying to get it to lay naturally, but you have kind of some wonky shapes underneath, you may not want it to stick to this particular one, but you do want it to stick to this one. Um, so it can be kind of a bit of a mixed bag between what you want it to stick to and what you don't want it to stick to. So what I typically do is I will just create a plane. So we'll just append, grab a plane, and I actually think, yeah, there it is. Let's actually go into that real quick. Is there history here? Nope. Oh, that's terrain, that's why. Wrong one. That's terrain. I mean, you could use that too, but so let's delete that one. That's okay. And then let's just append in plane. A plane. The plane. So what I'll do is I'll just make the surface that I want to draw it on. It's really quick and easy. Um, so I'll just take a plane and then kind of just wrap that to the shape that I want. And then maybe this one goes down here like this. And this is all just kind of end up being throwaway geo anyways. So I'll just really quick and dirty, just grab it and put it to about the shape that I want. Alright, so I want to go here and there. Maybe dip in a little bit there. And I do have a little bit of freedom after it's placed to move it around a little bit. I don't want to move it too much, but now all I have to do is I'll just create a custom shape, and then I'll just draw the brush on like that. So if we would go to brush, we take it to this, and we say, whoop, there you go. We can fix the depth a little bit here. We can change the size a little bit, maybe make that a little bit smaller. And it's a really, really quick and easy way to get the custom shapes that you want. And then all you have to do is just hide that, split hidden, and then boom, there you go. You have it basically where you want it, right? And then you can just come in and with a big move brush, you can just kind of, oops. Oh, so this happens quite a bit. Oh my gosh, what happened? What is going on? Why does this happen? And this is why we do stuff live. Basically, what happened is sometimes you hit the wrong button and it just drops um, your model to the canvas, and then it picks up a new one. So all you have to do is just go into document and just do new document. You don't have to worry about saving it because all of your history and everything is baked into the tool that you're working on. So you just drop it to the canvas again, hit T for edit, and then you're back to it. Super duper easy. So what I'll do is we'll just use the brush move. We're going to use the regular move tool. I typically use the move topological, and that's just with topological on. And this is in brush auto masking topological. If you ever want to grab this, I use this quite a bit for. Yes, Control N does fix it too. You're very correct. Um, so I use topological quite a bit. But when I want to move a large thing, then we'll look. I did it again. Here, Control N, like Dark said. So I'll just kind of nudge this around a little bit. I don't want to do too much because you can see it's going to kill the actual shape. So I can nudge it around a little bit, but I want to do most of the shaping at the time that I put it in. So that's how I did all of these ropes. It was super quick and easy. Once you have the method down, then you can just do it however you want to. It's super awesome. Super duper. And we are doing this in a pose because we are doing a more game centric pipeline. So it's not posed. Posing would come at the end. All right, so then that's how I would do this stuff back here. So the question is, how do I want that design to happen? So right now we have kind of this uh, design motif of coming from a central spot and then going to a couple of different spots. This is a little bit different, but you get the same idea where it's more centered around each other for the beginning, spreads out, and then comes back to a single spot. Control N is if you drop the, like if I accidentally hit T, and then, oh no, I have another, why is it doing that? Because basically what it does is it picks up the 3D model from the canvas, and you can sculpt on it. And then if you hit T, T is for this edit up here, that will actually drop it to the canvas, and then you can drop a new tool on. So that's basically what's happening here. So this tool is another instance of this tool, basically. So Control N will give you a new canvas. So it'll basically just say, okay, drop anything from the canvas that was dropped to the canvas. So if I hit Control N, now it goes back to just the current tool that I'm using. Yes. Control N. Yep, no problem. So we're gonna move. We're gonna keep the same design motif here, right? So we got this is another design element that goes from kind of a central point and outwards, right? Central point outwards, central point outwards, central point outwards. So we're gonna do that same thing with this design. The question will then become: do you put the central point over here, or do you put it over here? I think it makes most sense to do the central point from over here because of the you can anchor it to these armor plates. So that's what we're going to do. We're just going to grab this same design motif with the ring and the little square that is seen here, right? So we have the kind of this latch technology, if you will. So we'll do that same thing, and then we're just gonna grab. Maybe we'll grab this one. So we'll just duplicate that guy. We are going to let's see. Delete that one, so we'll do delete hidden. And if you guys are new to ZBrush, don't let my interface intimidate you at all. I tend to be I'm more of a messy worker than a clean worker. I don't really care what my interface looks like. It's more about just how quick I can do the things that I want to do. So the methodology I use for how I set up my UI is I just want everything that I can see that I can just go click real quick, go click, go click, go click, without having to hunt through the whole tool panel or any of the other ones in here. Like so, if you look on this side, it's basically all subtool stuff, subtool, and then all geo. This is all my geo stuff, ZRemesher. Um, this one is all modified topology. Um, modified topology. We have the new stagger, which is awesome. So I pulled those out as well. Stagger's really, really cool. Actually, I'll show you stagger right now. If you guys have not seen it. So what I'm going to do is, let's get this into about the spot that I want to get it to. And then just readjust this real quick. Yeah, that's good enough. So get this here. So maybe it's actually smaller than that. Maybe we go about that size. About like that. Stagger, to stagger or not to stagger. So let's say I want this to be the spot that I want to live in. So I can say home, that's my home stage. And then, or you can do either way. So basically you can do home stage or target stage, either one. Basically it's just saying, hey, this is your translation rotation scale at one spot, and this is your translation rotation scale at a separate spot, and it just moves those in the world space. So I can say this is my home stage, and then what I'll do is I'll just bring that out here. Maybe I actually want to like sculpt on this thing um, in Symmetry or something, and maybe I want to like scale it up and work on the details. So I can say, okay, this is my sculpting stage, and then so we hit target stage, and then we can just switch between those. So basically, it's just taking your subtool, it's taking what your subtool is, and being able to translate, rotate, or scale between two spots in global space. Super easy. And then I usually set a keyboard shortcut, so I'll do that real quick. So hit Control Alt and click on the one that you want to, and then I'm just gonna put a shortcut. That's fine, and then now I can just switch between those two spots. It's really, really helpful. I'm probably gonna end up doing that for these ones as well. Actually, I think do I have this one? Yes. All right, so I can come in here and work on this, all the details and everything like that, and then really quickly I can just switch back and put it back where it goes. So awesome. Stagger is really, really, really great addition. They also did a kind of global all home and all to target. So if you have multiple things, you can do all to home or all to. So it's a good idea if you're doing multiple staggers across your different subtools to just keep it consistent between, you know, where's the sculpting state or where's the home state and where's your target state, whether it's, you know, here or wherever you want it to be. So yeah. Okay, so let's delete these. Oh, sorry, Twitch. That one, that one, that. No. I just want to make sure that I'm deleting the correct ones. You got how to move. How do you move multiple subtools to a folder? You just got to do them one by one. You can't dual select in the subtool. So let's delete. Okay, we'll delete that one. We'll delete that one. We'll delete that one. We'll delete that one. As you see, I started here. I already have a plane set up. So let's just get that into the position that I want it to be. So we'll start from there. And I guess the question really is, what do I want the design to do? So so I think about functionality first, right? What is this for? What is this thing for? So basically, I would think it's to keep this stable, right? So even though it's tucked in here, you know, when she's fighting or something like that, it kind of make it caught on her elbow or something. So you don't want it to like fly all the way out here while she's fighting. So maybe there is a reason to keep it pinned to this side so it doesn't go too far out that way. So that's what I'm kind of imagining the actual functionality to be. So then maybe we'll do, you know, like just 1, 2, 3, something like that. Yeah, that sounds good. That seems like a smart thing to do for your garment. Keep it out of your way while you don't want it to be in the way, right? So I'm just going to get it to about that spot, and maybe we'll just smooth this out real quick. I'm just going to push all this in so it's not buckling out too much. So that's good there. That's probably good. I don't need to be super complicated. I do want this to be right on that plane of the ring. Like that. Cool. So let's go grab our handy dandy and just go whoop. So then the question would become, how does this thing hang? So it probably would be maybe something like this for the top one. And I can kind of maybe something like that. Yeah, if you have 100 subtools, you'll be there for a little while. I don't get too hung up on you see here I have like 79 subtools. I don't get too hung up on the structure. Not until maybe I'm finished and I'm doing baking or something like that. I don't really care about the structure a whole lot in here. All right, so let's say that's good. Let's curve this part down just a touch. Cool. Wait for that to save. Okay. And then let's do split unmasked points. Okay. Basically, what that did was it just split this guy out to its own subtool. Sorry, this guy. Okay, let's do. It should be just a touch longer. So let me see if I can get that to be. It doesn't want to. I think one of the only major tricks to this is just making sure that it's just long enough, because stretching it a little bit extra, you don't want to stretch the little pieces in there. So that's good. That's good enough. Okay, we'll do split unmasked points, and then we'll do one more like this. Just try to clean up that curve a little bit. Something like that. And then we'll do one more split unmasked points. Turn this guy off. And then there we go. So we'll have to edit a little bit of stuff, which is totally fine and normal. So let's grab this bad mama jamma, and we can just rotate this guy like that. Cool. Grab this one. Just rotate this one out just a touch. Something like that. Cool. So once you have these types of processes in hand, it makes the block out process so much easier, because you don't have to worry about, like, oh my gosh, how do I do the thing? How to do the thing is actually most of the problem usually. Now, eventually I'll redo these to the rope because I want them to be consistent, but I wanted to show kind of what the design motif is going to be and how that is going to look. Question is, should we do 4? We got 3 here, 2 here, but we got like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 here, 4 here, 1, 2, 3. So we're kind of going between 3 and 4. Yeah, I got 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, we're kind of inconsistent with the number of repetition for pattern. So we could really go with either one. I'm gonna take a drink of water real quick. All right. This one I'm just gonna delete. I don't want this one. Nope. Clear the mask. I want this guy. Yes. We'll delete that one. This one I don't need anymore. We can delete that one. Okay, cool. So one of the things that I really wanted to work on today was actually refining some more of the secondary shapes in the head and kind of getting the head a little bit into a better spot. Right now it's a little iffy. So I sort of want to start. Hello, thank you. Start refining some of these shapes in here, in the head, and in here, along with the neck. So I think that's what we're going to do today. So let's take a quick peek at the concept. All right, some things to note. So we got these red little thingamajigs, so we have to get that in there somehow. This red guy, I think we could do some sculpting, but I have an idea for that as well. I'd like to refine the shapes in the neck. Looks like we're missing this little piece here, and just this is kind of blobby and gross. So let's refine the neck and the jaw, and then we'll work on this process as well too. Yeah. So that's what we'll do. All right. So I'm gonna work on the neck first and just kind of refine some of those pieces in here. So today we got sculpty sculpty. You know what we could do? I actually do this quite a bit, where I'll take the concept and throw it behind ZBrush. I'll take this guy just to get overall proportions really quickly. Can I rotate this arbitrarily? No, I cannot. So what I'll do is I'll use this see-through and I'll just kind of line it up a little bit. Just rotate. Get it about where I want it. And then we can just quickly, a lot of things don't line up this way, especially when your concept is in a pose. That's one of the things you gotta kind of be watchful of. But what I can do is kind of line up the shoulders and see about where we're at. So I'm going to get the jaw about the same spot, which is right about there. Okay, cool. And then let's lock the camera. Oops. Okay, that's not it. That's not it at all, Scotty. So I a lot of times will use camera. So if I go to draw and camera, this lock camera down here is super handy, especially for this. You can set up different cameras and stuff. And you can do it that way, or you can just lock the camera really quickly. So I'm gonna set a shortcut for that. So let's do that. We'll do Control C. Shift C. So that'll lock the camera, and now I can just sculpty in here. We'll just get the overall proportions laid out. Alright, and then maybe we'll turn on our Sculptors Pro here and just come in and just at least get the shapes down. Yeah, that's good enough. At least gets me somewhere. Okay, and then now I can just go in and do some shapeology. We'll just work on what feels good for shapes and such. How's everybody else doing out there? You guys having a grandy old time? So our head and neck are not symmetrical, so we're going to run into a little bit of this action, which is fine. And we'll just play with some shapes and stuff in here. We'll just start developing some of these secondary shapes. Happy little shapes. I'll just start. So sometimes some of the methods that I use, particularly for coming up with these little details and stuff, you know, like in the concept you've got, you know, this kind of stuff. So you know, how do you take these types of little details to the next level? One of them, you know, you want to make sure that the main pieces are there. So we've got like this little thing. We've got, you know, this layer. We've got this layer. We've got a couple of minor shapes in here. But what does this language look like in here, right? That's part of our job as a character artist to figure out what that language is on a 3D model, right? Because you're not always, you know, what is all this, right? It's paint strokes. It gets the idea across and the motif across, but it's really up to us to figure out, like, you know, we're not going to go in and say, okay, this exact stroke is here, this exact stroke, this exact stroke. It's up to us to kind of take the overall idea of this and make it real. Bluxby, what's up, man? Yeah, I don't stream a whole lot anymore. Busy, 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 busy. I do try to keep a couple of ZBrush Pixologic streams here and there to keep me honest. Um, so one of the, you know, it's up to us to develop these areas into something that's cohesive and cool looking. So a lot of times what I'll do is I'll just I'll work on happy accidents, right? How do I get some cool things in there pretty quickly that gives me some surface ideas? So I'm just going to add a little bit of a geo here. So I'm just smoothing with Sculptris Pro on, and that's basically just giving me some extra. This is like dynamic dynamesh. Dynamesh. So I'm just going to go and just add a little bit more through here. I could just Dynamesh it at a higher level, but I kind of want to keep all of this stuff as is right now. And I'm just playing with some ideas. So what I'll try to do is I try to give myself happy accidents as much as I can. So maybe what I'll do is I'll grab standard brush, we'll do a drag rec, and then maybe we'll go and look for some alphas. Let's look for some alphas. What kind of alphas do we have? Sure, let's try this guy. So let's grab that, and then let's just start. Let's start playing. So we want that. We want to pull that down we want sub. Maybe a little bit more. So what can some of these do? Maybe what we'll do is actually let's store a morph target first, and then we'll see if we can just get some interesting organic shapes happening through here. And I don't want it to look too much like leather. So then what I'll do maybe is just what is right? So like that feels kind of cool. And then I'll just go back with my morph brush and just pull out the spots that I don't like, right? So just morph out some of those areas. And this is a way to just kind of encourage happy accidents happening. I kind of like this crossing in here. I don't really like this. Okay, I go back with my morph brush. I'll just pull some of this out. I want to just keep some of it. I don't want to look like I dragged a bunch of alphas on there. But what I want to do is just to help encourage some cool things. So like this is cool. I like this. This is kind of cool. Okay. Okay, pull my morph brush back. Just pull some of this out. That way you just capitalize on the things that you like. And then maybe I'll do is come back with my damn standard and say, okay, let's pull this stuff in. And keep what you like and then get rid of the other stuff. That's important when you're doing this to stay within the initial design motif, and making sure that you're not introducing another element of design. So like this feels a little kind of wackadoo. So we'll just pull some of this. Why did it get rid of my morph target? Oh, that's why. So if you are using Sculptris Pro, it'll nuke your morph target. Just FYI. Yes, that's fine. Which is fine. We can go in and just smooth some of this stuff out instead. I do like the so if we look at the concept, so we do have kind of this kind of repeating, not quite parallel lines, but close, right? So that's an element that we can lean on. Um, it's quite prevalent through most of this, this, that kind of thing. This is pretty prevalent for a design motif as well. And then this. So we can have some shapes coming off the surface. We can have kind of little holes. Yeah. take a look at the concept a little bit more. So maybe what I'll do is I'll grab my inflate and we'll start playing with some surface. Yeah, I may need to, let's just dynamesh this guy and see what he looks like. So say 512. 512 actually may be a little too much, so we'll try 256. That should be enough, at least to get. Why can't you watch in 1080p? Should be. I think I'm broadcasting at 1080. Maybe it's 720. I'm not sure. Yeah, I may be on 720 at the moment then for my camera and my Twitch settings. So I'm just kind of exploring some of the shapes that maybe may work or may not. We'll see. Yeah, it's probably my settings. Sometimes you may be working on one particular area and things just aren't working. You can just go to a different area and find things that are working. Like this, I feel this is working a little bit better back here, so maybe we'll explore this a little bit and see if we can get some shapes that feel awesome. And then maybe that establishes what that surface detail may look like, and then you have a better idea in how to approach other areas that weren't working so well, like that. Let me grab my inflate here. Okay. Um, that's it's getting there. Still needs a lot of work. This is still poopy. So maybe we'll jump to how we're gonna do the red spots, and then maybe that'll help catapult some of this other stuff. So the idea that I had for that is to just duplicate this thing. So we'll grab this. We're gonna duplicate that. Then we're gonna fill this with a red color. Let's fill this with this color. RGB, fill. Okay, cool. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to just delete some of it. So we don't need all this. Let's go back to this color. Don't need all of that. Don't need that. I'll show you my idea here in a second. That's good for now. Um, so I want this to live underneath the surface, and then I'll just sculpt this with holes in it to reach to that. So let's do our inflate, but we'll deflate a bit. So now that piece is just living right under the surface. So we'll just deflate this just a touch. Deflating. Deflating. Wait for the payoff. Ready? Oops. Okay. So now what I'll do is I'll switch to this subtool. This one. And then we'll just come in here and go. Chicky. And we'll just sculpt around it like that. Ha 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 ha! Tricky. Chicky. Alright, and we can do the same thing here. We can just grab. Alright. So that's a quick and easy way to do it, which is pretty handy dandy if you ask me, you know? And then you can just sculpt right around it too, right? And we can use this to come in and say, I want this trim to be here. I also want this trim to come down here. And this is all sculptable too, right? So if you change your mind, you just either redo it real quick. Alright, so then we switch back to this tool. And then we sculpty. Alright, we can sculpt right around that. And then we can play with the thickness all we want to. Alright, so this is kind of a non-destructive way of making this type of detail. Luis, what's up? Hi from Brazil. Congrats on the beautiful work. It is complicated to pose. Is it complicated to pose with all this clothing? What would be the first step? Yeah, it would be complicated as hell to pose this thing. That's why you have to really decide way before you start blocking all this stuff out what's your pipeline. So in this particular case, we're doing a video game character pipeline. So we want to make sure that most of the pose is static, the pose is mirrored, so that we can bind it to the skeleton that already has animation on it, and those types of things. So in this particular pipeline, the pose wouldn't come until it was rigged. If I was just going to come up with a beauty pose, either I would need to use like the subtool or the transpose master and just um, you know mask certain areas, rotate it, unmask it, and then fix it. Um, at the end, at the very end, probably. Or what you could do is just do a quick rig on it, and then export this as it's low res, put the rig on it, rig it, and then pose it with the rig, and then export it back out. So for video game pipeline, I typically will just do a decent static A pose. Um, Probably the most I would do at the end, I may just kind of like, you know, move one thing that is the least amount of costly for the most amount of asymmetry bang for the buck. So I may like just take the neck and just kind of like rotate your head like this, or maybe I would shift the one leg out a little bit or one leg back or something, and then just do a little bit of fixing up here and there. But the most amount of bang for the least amount of work. Um, I'll show you this real quick. Hold on. So it's kind of like this guy that I did. I did this guy quite a while ago, but I did the same thing. Like, um, if you look really, really carefully, the only thing that's asymmetrical on this guy is his head. But I did it in an A pose that was fairly dynamic. Like this guy is not finished, obviously, but so if you go into here, right, then you can, if you just do like a head pose or like, turn the head a little bit and pull it down, you can get some cool stuff out of a very symmetrical pose with it doing the least amount of work. So that's what I would go with. I always struggle with sculpting eyes, even though I know the planes. They always come off and not looking like they're wrapping around the actual eyeball. Any tips? Yeah, absolutely. We can once we finish this little bit, we can go into kind of how the eyes, because her eyes are just pretty terrible right now. Um, really terrible, actually. So yeah, I will get to that, Cam. Yeah. Okay, cool. So instead of just kind of arbitrarily doing dots and stuff in here, I'm just going to kind of erase that, and then we'll use our little handy dandy Randy. We'll at least get something close to what the concept is. So say something like that. And then maybe what we'll do is we'll just go and we'll just get them blocked in real quick. Like that. Oops. Then just gotta fix those up. Handy dandy candy. Then we can play around with some of the shapes in between here. This is the fun part where you can just zone out a little bit and play with shapes. These guys, that's not gonna work, is it? Is it? Let's turn this off. We'll just clean this up a little bit. So maybe like that, that, like that. There we go. Oh yeah. What's up, Jibby? Perfectly splendid. I don't think I've ever been called perfectly splendid. That might be a first. All right. And then we can just so the cool thing about using this method is that you can really, it's very forgiving. It's very, very, very forgiving. You can change the shape, change the thickness, change the edges. All kinds of fun stuff. That read is feeling pretty good from there. Yeah, that's good for a block in. We do have one little one coming like this. Then if you want to move, you got to move it, move it. You can just shift it over just a touch. Can play with the shape. Easy peasy. Lemon squeezy. Cool. Yeah, we can talk about eyes now. So you know what? Let me get this squared away. Let's get this guy. I'm gonna redo this little piece here. So I'm just pulling that orange surface back out a little bit. And then what I'll do is I'll just use my dam standard. And then I'll use some Sculptures Pro. And we'll just go. Maybe I'll use my lazy mouse. Get me something a little bit cleaner. At least line-wise. I can go back and clean up the edges there. No problem. I want the curve to be okay, though. Are you okay, curve? Are you okay? Yeah, dude, I'm good. I'm good, bro. I'm good. And I may need to subdivide this guy here as well. So let's do that. So let's close holes first. Oh, yeah, it would help if I delete hidden first. Close holes. There we go. Let's grab this color, and then we'll do close holes. There we go. Cool. You gravy. Yeah. I think this one's got enough geo here. Wrong one. Let's do this guy. So we'll just clean this up just a touch. And this may work for some methods, and it may not work for other methods. It's a little funky here, and it may take a little bit more effort than what it's worth. So there's no reason why you can't choose a different method for a different area, you know? But we'll see if we can clean this up just a touch. At least get the general thickness down. Well, that is a bright orange. When you stare at that orange, it really hurts my eyes. Woo! Thank God for mute buttons. Oh, good. I'm good. All right. Let's just push this stuff back for now. There we go. And you just taper out there. Cool, that's a start for blocking. That'll work. That'll work. Alright, let's talk about eyes for a little bit here. At the request of one of you. I forgot who it was. Alright. The eyes. Yeah, this one is. Yeah, her head's a little whacked. So what I'm gonna do is I may just break the head out. Yeah, that's what I'm gonna do. So I'm gonna keep the shoulders, and I'm gonna break the head out onto its own, and I'm just gonna hide the seam under this. Um, that seems like a seems. Get it? Seems like a good thing to do. All right, what I'm gonna do first though is I'm always gonna keep the original. So let's dupe that. The original will stay there. And this one, we are going to let's keep all the subdivs. Let's see if there's any layers. No layers. Okay, cool. And then what I'll do is we'll keep it right around like that. maybe what I want to do is go down to subdiv 1 and just see if there's a seam actually that works instead of. Is there a seam here? Guess this one's okay. Let's turn on display properties double so I can see the other side there. And then we'll just hide the rest of that. Cool. Switch that. Yes. We'll do delete hidden. That'll take a second to do because it has a bunch of subdivisions. It looks hard to make 3D characters. Is it? It's a good question. Yes and no, but yes. I wouldn't say hard to make them. I would just say it's involved, very involved, and takes a decent amount of time. Cool. Now I can just focus on the head without having to worry about focusing on the body as well. Cool. And then let's talk about asymmetry. Woo! So maybe we'll just get some shapes going on that feel a little bit better head-wise. This originated actually from a scan from a 3D scan store. I typically will just use base meshes for humans. I've made so many humans over my days. I don't need to continue to make them from scratch every time. So I don't anymore. So I use either my own versions of heads as base meshes, or just one from 3D Scan Store or any other scanned head that I can start from, and then make my creative choices from there. So some of the things about eyes is these are asymmetrical. The question is, do I want to symmetrize? I don't think that I want to symmetrize. I do like the occasional asymmetry. What I am going to do is I'm going to hide the ears. So let's just take the ears out of the equation for now. So we'll go over a couple of important aspects of the eyeballs and how it sits in the head. Let's turn off symmetry real quick. Okay, we'll go back up, just so that they're not really distracting in there. Okay, a couple of points is, let's move. So these are symmetrical eyes at the moment, but we don't want those to be symmetrical anymore. So let's mask that one, and then we'll pull this one out and set that about the right size. One of the biggest mistakes I made for a long time was not giving the eyelids enough thickness. I tend to make that mistake quite a bit, so I've been really wary of making sure at least the bottom eyelid has enough thickness back to the eyeball there. So, Go down to maybe 4. So some of the things that I focus on first is just making sure that the shape of the eye and the consistent proportions and attributes of the eye versus the eyelid versus the eyeball are there. Those being that the the outside of the eye typically is a touch higher than the inside of the crunkle. So I want to make sure that the inside of the crunkle and the outside of the eye are just offset a little bit. The other thing is that the highest point of the eyelid on the top is on the inside of the lowest point of the eyelid on the bottom. So just want to make sure that say about here is the lowest point on the bottom part of the eyelid, and about here is the highest point on the top eyelid. So I just want to make sure that it has that nice kind of like it's not two pieces sitting like this. It's like offset just a touch, and you find that those shapes in silhouettes quite a bit throughout the body, like in the legs and the arms. They're always kind of offsetting curves on either side of something. So like the forearm, right? So like this curve is a little bit offset from this curve, and alarm and your legs, those types of things. So that's a pretty common um, element. Make sure that we have enough room. So then make sure that there's consistent thickness on your eyelids. So probably the next step that I do is just making sure that I always give the bottom eyelid just a little bit more than I'm kind of initially comfortable with giving, just to make sure that I have enough thickness there. So that thickness needs to be consistent from here to here, all the way through to about here. And this can come in just a touch. So I'll go through these little checks before I really start looking at the other details. So that way you get how the eyelid skin is wrapping around the physical shape of the eyeball. So this is a little bumpy. So you may just want to come with like the your trim dynamic or your smooth or um, move tool. Just kind of get these shapes a little cleaned up and not so kind of wobbly. Just making sure that we've got a nice, decently sharp. Let me go up one subdivision here. We have a nice, decently sharp line here. All right, and this kind of comes in. Smooth it out just a touch. Smooth all this kind of funkiness out. Okay, so for this side, the highest point is actually feels a little bit too far in. And it looks like the eyeball is pointing out this way a little bit too much, so maybe what we'll do is we'll just kind of rotate that in. I'll use this side of this part of the sphere and just kind of say about, oh, okay, this is where the center of the eye is. That's really helpful to help kind of line up stuff if you don't have any textures on that thing yet. So I'll typically just say, okay, that's about it. A super minor note is that your eyes are rotated out just slightly. If they're too straight or pointed in a little bit, they look cross-eyed. So the trick is to just take the eyes and just rotate them out by a couple of degrees, and that'll help with the whole like cross-eyed look. All right, so then now I want to make sure that the thickness of the eyelid is consistent between the eyes. So this one's thin, this one's thick. So we'll just make sure that the thickness is consistent here. So I typically will go through these kind of checks and balances before I even really start thinking about the rest of the face too much, because once I get the relationships of the eyes, because that's what we stare at so much. Once I get the relationship between the eyelids and the eyeballs feeling somewhat comfortable, then I'll go through and kind of change the whole look of things. Okay, so from the top then, just want to make sure that this thickness and this thickness feels similar, and they feel somewhat similar. Then maybe I'll sharpen this side just a touch. There's so much complexity when it comes to the human face. It's crazy. I'm going to push this in just a touch. All right, so this is all kind of still wavy, so I'm gonna kind of clean up the top lid here. So again, I want to make sure that the highest point of the upper eyelid is just on the inside of the lowest part of the lower eyelid. So I'd say right about here, and you can use the center of the iris as a good kind of check mark as well too. That feels okay. This feels a little funky. And then I'll look at them together, because typically, for the most part, this shape and this shape really determines what a person's look looks like. So I at least want to be consistent between the two sides to start off from, and then if I really want to later, I can go and do some asymmetry. But at least I want to get the characteristics the same here. So maybe I'll just... Then you may kind of look at all this and go, man, that's a lot of like paying attention to little details and stuff for one little area. But for such a high traffic visual area, it's so important to make sure that you get this stuff at least somewhat realistic and pleasing shape-wise. So I usually will spend at least a decent amount of time kind of cleaning this stuff up. Like even this is all super gross. I'm gonna work on kind of evening up, cleaning up some of this stuff. But it is super important. Super. And you can even come in here and just mask a portion, if you just want to affect this area. We could just use our maybe some of our H polish and then smooth it out a little. It's feeling a little bit better, still a little wobbly. All these little important things are very necessary to nail down. That way, the presentation and the overall feel doesn't take you out of the moment, you know? Okay, so if we look at the concept, so now we've kind of cleaned up the eyes a little bit, and they're kind of sitting, the eyelids are sitting against the eyeballs a little bit. Oh, actually, you know what? Hold on. Before we jump into that, the last thing is I'll check is the side, right? So you want kind of a pizza pie slice, or a pizza pie. Hey, pizza pie. So from both sides, you want to make sure that the corner doesn't come back too much like this, but you also want to make sure that it's not too shallow like this. You want to make it gives a little bit of, right? If you look at it from the side, you'll see the pupil and then like a little triangle of the sclera, and that's all you really want. And then just I would say look at reference too, and say if you can get somebody from the side. Let's get rid of this. Feels a little like a sty. You don't want that. Okay. So now at least they're sitting in there a little bit better, and now I want to start making some design choices about the relationship of the nose to the cheeks and all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to look at the concept here real quick. So one of the things that I'm looking at is she feels a little almost Asian. Not with the so there's a couple of primary shape relationships that determines the kind of like the Asian look, and that is the eyes are not set back like Caucasian is, so they actually sit more towards the orbital and the brow, so they're a little bit more shallow, and the relationship of the depth between your nasal bone and your zygoma is more shallow as well. So what I'm seeing here is we don't have a lot of depth between the end of the nasal bone and kind of where the the malar fat happens, or the the zygoma is. So from here to here is fairly shallow. The eyes feel kind of just crazy anyways, but and that's kind of what I'm missing here is you see that we get a lot of shadow from the bridge of the nose down to here, so it makes her feel a lot more like Caucasian, and I want to go a little bit more towards what the the concept is doing. So I'm gonna work on trying to shallow up this the nose, the bridge of the nose, and the the zygoma here. So I'm just going to make some micro adjustments. See if I can just get that. All right, maybe we'll pull a little bit of this back as well. I got to be careful because I don't have symmetry on. Should probably just turn that on. So let's pull this back. So the relationship is, the eyes are not so far back in the orbital. Um, the the edge of the nose is not so far away from the zygoma here. So we'll see if we can. We'll pull the brow back just a touch. What's my PC configuration. I don't have a super robust PC. I think I have like a 1070 graphics card. I think I have it's like a 9800 series Intel. Um, for ZBrush, it's really CPU based, not GPU. So if you're going to kind of look for something that is really good for ZBrush, I would look into beefing up your CPU. Work on. For a long time, I got the lips wrong so many times in my earlier years. You just kind of learn to read the shapes and what their relationships are. Um, One of the big things that I messed up quite a bit in mouths was the lip line. Um, Really, it's super complicated. Good God. But uh, you want to make sure that uh, if the character has a straight lip line, it doesn't really look good. um, but what I would do is I would push for more of an M shape in the lip line, and that tends to make it look a little bit more realistic. Um, how long have I been sculpting for? Today or in general? I'm just joking. I started my 3D venture back in 2002. Um, but that was just playing around with some 3D software. Um, I have been actively sculpting since about 2013. But even before that, I was clay sculpting and Play-Doh and all that kind of stuff. Aristotle, Socrates, Play-Doh. Let's get that one. Um, so yeah, for a while, and a lot of this just comes down to the amount of times that you've done something. Um, you start realizing quite a bit more about the relationships of shapes. The other one is typically you'll see the bottom lip is just underhung from the upper lip just by a hair. Um, I also think that her face looks a little long, a little too long for what I want it to look like. In the concept, it feels a little more round. So I'm looking specifically at what's this size uh, of the end of the nose, and where does it sit between the bottom of the eyelid and the corner of the mouth, right? How far is this distance? And it feels like it's a little long here in comparison. So I'm gonna play with just trying to shorten the face a little bit to get the overall feeling of a more round head than a tall head. And I think that the top of the skull is not helping that at all either. So I'm going to work on these like minor changes really make a huge difference. So the nose feels a little bit long. So I'm going to see about pulling it up just a touch. And get a little bit more of oops, the kind of feminine cheeks here. Uh, that's better. Maybe pull the top of the lips up just a little bit. Give it a little bit more. More. So this side of the nose looks a little bit funky. It, actually, I usually mention this when I'm working on faces, but what I would suggest if you want to practice faces is to pick up some real scans. Pick up some scans from like 3D Scan Store or any place that you can look at real world uh, heads in in your in ZBrush, and then just study that. You know, what's the relationship of uh, the center of the bottom of the nose here compared to the lips, right? And then just look at that from a different couple of different scans. You know, does the bottom of the nostril actually have kind of a shape here? You know, and then is it flush? Like, is the inside of the nostril here flush to the lip? Um, you know, what's the shape of the top of the lip from profile? A lot of times, typically, you'll see it's a little bit more straight. It's like straight and then curves out like in the lower third. Yeah, thanks, Vandy. You know, I, I think one of the biggest things for me, kind of early on in my art career was just I didn't know how to study. You know, I didn't know what to look for. I didn't know how to get the answers that I needed and where to look and how to look. And I think that just knowing how to study is equally as important, if not more, than spending time studying. Um, you know, figure out what you're looking for is vital. you know. So looking at the front of the lips, typically your filtrum, I think it's the filtrum, will come from the outer corner of the inner part of the nasal, nasium, nasium. It's not the nasium. There's no such thing. And then we'll kind of come to the edge of the lips here, uh, the cupid's bow, if you will. I think I'm a little too low in subdivs, so we'll just increase this a little bit more. Any recommendation on hair cards? I know you can't exactly do them in ZBrush. Any creative ways to get that done? Uh, yes, outsource it. Let somebody else do it. No. I hate hair cards with a passion. Uh, it's such um a burden of love. I guess you could call it. It's uh I think the first thing for hair cards is just to figure out what you want the end product to be, and that goes with pretty much any project that you're working on, right? Is it low poly? Is it a mobile game? Is it Uncharted 16? Is it uh, is it going to be rendered in only in a still? Is it going to be a realistic real-time PS5 game? Um, all of that stuff really dictates how you go about creating, and the best ways, or at least the better ways to do hair cards. But you know, are you going to be able to use? Do you have to use just hair cards? No, and then you need to know what your poly limit should be and what your budgets are, right? Because that really dictates, um, you know, how much design choice that you're going to be able to use when creating your cards. You know, are you just is it going to be, you know, 30,000 hair cards or 30,000 poly hair budget? Um, then you really need to figure out how you're gonna you're gonna make that because a 30,000 poly hair budget is, it may work for a male, but if you have a female with long hair, then your construction choice is going to be a little bit different. What's up, David? Thanks, man. There, we can, for anybody who hasn't been here in a little bit, we can take a look at what we've been working on. Oh, hey, look, she doesn't have a body. That's awesome. Let's turn this one back on. But let's go here and actually, what we could look at before and after. Check this out. So this is before. This is after. Before, after. It's definitely the nose is a little bit more shallow. The eyes feel better. Absolutely, CT, no problem. It's after. The lips feel better. The nose shapes the bottom part of the nostrils still needs a bit of work. The bottom eyelids need a bunch of work still. Before, after. But she does feel a touch more Asian. Let's take a look at it from 3/4 here. She still has I'm not too keen on the 3/4 yet. So here's before, here's after, before, after. Lips feel better. The 3/4 profile still needs some love. So for hair, what I would do you use Photoshop in your pipeline for hair cards? 100% yes for now, because we do a lot of edits with the hair textures, right? So whether it's whether you're embedding your color and stuff into your hair textures, or not. Oh, sorry. Here's the full piece that we're working on. Disregard. Oh, why do you have? Hey yo, why do you have legs down there? Hey, why do you have legs? Let's delete those. Delete hidden. I gotta be a little subdiv. Delete hidden. We don't need the feet in there. From France. What's up, buddy? So yeah, this is what we're working on, and this is the concept if anybody has not been here for the whole entire time. It's always good to take a quick look and see how you're doing as well. Her eyes need to be bigger, for sure. I think one of the things that's going to help is maybe putting some. This is another thing too, right? So when you're looking at the concept, it's important to have consistent lighting with the concept. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to specifically look at, because that determines how the shape of the face is presented, right? Oops, not that one. Look at this one. How would I retopo something like this? I would take it piece by piece. A lot of times you can get some good low-res topo from just ZRemesh, and other times you can use just subdivisions to be able to get your low-res. But it would probably be a mix between ZRemeshing and going in and retopoing something by hand. So I'm gonna put the light. It's a little bit more kind of top down, and what that's doing is it's explaining the relationship between the lips here and the cheeks and the depth of the eyes. Right? So we got this really nice kind of very round features, almost circular, for the brow and the inside of the eye, and that's also echoed by the shape of the eye. Even though we have a little bit more of like the shallow depth from the bridge of the nose to the cheeks, we have very round features here, and we're not seeing that. See, we're seeing kind of more like this almond oval type of look. So I'm going to put it right about there. Maybe we'll decrease the depth quite a bit. See what that looks like. She's off center. I use this depth actually quite a bit. If you go into light and you use your distance, sorry, it's distance, um, you can see the light actually falls off quite a bit down here. And it kind of gives a nice, this is, actually, you know what, maybe we'll just, if you click that once, it'll actually put it behind. So maybe we'll do something like this. Oh, it would help if I turned the old face off. Ha ha ha! And which side is it? It looks like it's off to the side just a touch. Maybe to the right just a little bit. So maybe something like this. See what that looks like. Well, we know right off the bat that this is too thick because we're getting a big shadow here. But specifically, if we're looking at the overall shape, it feels like the eyes are still a little bit too deep, and the roundness of the edge of the brow is too sharp. So you got this really nice gradient of dark all the way up to here's your threshold of light to shadow. But we've got this fairly wide, right? The corner is out a little bit too far, and this curvature here is a little too much. But I am getting this nice. See how there's not a whole lot of shadow in here, which means that the plane that is the front of the cheek and the lip is fairly flat. So we're getting that here. We're not getting a whole bunch here. So that's good. The nose feels a little bit better. It could probably be even a little bit more flat. But it also looks like the nose actually turns up a little bit. Right, the bottom of the nose is a little bit further down from the tip of the nose. So let's take that into account as we do some work. Let's turn it back up to 100. Okay, cool. Okay, so we're going to work on shallowing out the brow. The brow definitely feels too sharp. What's up, Yotan? Thanks, man. Yeah, these are the types of things that you really got to, it has to happen in your brain um, in order to really nail something, and these things are really important. So first, I'm going to start off by bringing in the corners of the brows a bit. They feel a little too sharp out here. All right, and then we want to increase the range of the brow, of the underside of the brow, in terms of where it sits from the difference between where the light is hitting and the shadow is hitting, that line, and where the top of the eyelid is. We want to kind of round that out a little bit more and soften that up. We are going to widen the eyes a little bit as well. So just ever so slightly will make them just a touch bigger. It's better to go just a little bit at a time and stay a little bit more realistic than it does to kind of go, oh, I want the eyeballs this big. I tend to Just do it a little bit at a time. And because those shape relationships between the highest point of the upper eyelid is on the inside of the lowest point of the lower eyelid, because we already established that, now I can just work on the overall shapes, and they'll stay fairly consistent as long as I'm careful. Right, her eyes are definitely a little bit bigger, right? And we want to start pulling in, and we'll just smooth that out a little bit. It always helps to use your lower subdivisions in this part, because you can really work on just the primary shapes while still retaining kind of your your tertiary details. All right, she still feels tall, so let's see if. Do I use perspective? Yeah. Yes, I do. I mostly sculpt in perspective, unless I'm doing some kind of technical work, like some hard surface stuff, or I'm doing symmetrical stuffs. This feels a little bit weird here. Like the arch of the orbital feels a little too wide in there. So we're gonna let's go down to like 2 here, and we'll just see if we can push this in. Just start nudging that in a little bit. Feels a bit off. And because we're working on shallowing up the eyes, I really want to make sure that the orbital bone structure is surrounding the eye and not going kind of crazy. Which this one is. So this side's going a little nuxadoo, which is an official term. I think we can shallow the nose a little bit more too. Maybe we'll work on bringing kind of all of this back. Right, so the tip of the nose is up just a little bit more. We don't want to get too pig nosy, so I want to be really careful with that though. To be able to go over how to effectively study. That is a very, very good request. How to effectively study. I think one of the biggest things in how to study correctly is to know is to focus on relationships. Not like, oh, my girlfriend's coming over, so I got to study. But like, where things sit compared to other things, um, and that really differs in the different types of context that you're working on at a given point. But for me, what I what I focus on when I'm studying something is the relationships and size of things compared to things that are around it. So if you're looking specifically at, how do you do the face? Um, one of the one of the things that I look at is the relationships of elements, right? So if you're, let's say, in context of the face, When I'm studying this face, I want to look at the relationships of the elements compared to the other things. And you can take that from a macro level with like, oh, where does this eye sit in a level plane to this eye? Is it on the exact same plane? Is it offset like this? Because some people are actually like that. Let me make sure I do that correctly. What's the distance from here to here, right? What is you know, does this line sit above or below this line? What is the distance of here to here, right? Where's the lowest part of the eyelid in comparison to the corner of the mouth? How much distance like it's those kinds of things, and just looking at the relationships uh, between elements, and not even just from one side. You got to look at it from all sides. What does like even if you're looking at the jaw, does the end of the jaw sit the same on both sides? Do they sit out like this? Does she have a square face? you know, or does she have a diamond face, or a very angular face? Where do the if you look at like I'm old school, so if you look at Kathy Ireland as a pinnacle of beauty in the 80s and 90s, if you look at her face, like the this line compared to this line straight down your face is almost parallel. So you have something like a more strong jawed look, which might be cool. Like it may be that like maybe you've got a flat face, and the jaw actually comes forward more, like this, and you have more of kind of a flat face. It might be kind of cool. Um, but I digress. So it's really about looking at relationships of things and being able to kind of understand those relationships, and not only understand them but see them, right? You train your eye to see so much that if you look at these things for long enough, you'll automatically go, oh, that's what's wrong, is one eye is higher than the other, or oh, why does that person's eyes look weird, right? Even when you're looking, so if you're watching a movie or something, or you see somebody that like you're like, wow, that's their face is interesting. Why is it interesting? Well, oh, maybe their eyes are just a touch wider than the distance of uh you know so typically the distance from your cruncle to your cruncle is about the size of the distance from out of here to the inside of your cruncle. So it's like 3 eyes wide, right? So if you see somebody who has like, oh, their eyes feel small, right? It maybe it's because the distance between the two eyes are just a touch smaller than what you would typically see, right? And those types of things are how you study, right? And looking at the relationships of things. Um, is the if you look at I'm a big college football guy, so if you look at Trevor Lawrence, who is the let's look at Trevor Lawrence, Mr. Elfman. If I can spell Trev or Lar, it's this guy's crazy looking. Like even if you just look at the difference, like why does his face look so crazy? Like why does it look so much different from a normal person? Right? And when you start picking the relationships apart and looking at the distance between certain things, you can kind of start breaking down why they look the way that they look. And then once you can identify why somebody looks the way that they look, then you can use that to your advantage in pushing your own art to look a different way because you're understanding the relationships between different elements of whatever you're looking at. For him, look at the distance between where his eyes are to his lip, to the corner of his lips, and the corner of his lips down to where his chin is. It's just so long, so long, and it looks long because his eyes are a little bit smaller in his head, right? And you've got kind of like this square jaw with a real prominent chin. If his eyes were a little bit bigger, um, and like the chin a little bit shorter, he would look completely different. But that's what makes this guy look like the way he looks, is being able to identify it's because of the relationships of the size of things and the size of things compared to the other things that are in the same area, right? Tangent. Anyways, I love this guy's face, man. It's just epic. He's got this such a cool um, profile as well. Everything's just sharp, you know, and prominent and super long. This guy's like an elf. It's crazy. But that's because his eyes are a little bit smaller, and the distance from his eyes down to his chin is just, it's gargantuan. In a good way. And it's still, it's pleasing to look at, but then you can start saying, okay, well, you have a long face. What makes somebody's face feel long? And that's attributed to, maybe a longer chin, and then uh, the distance between the eyes and the bottom of the jaw, you know? And then you can have a more kind of long face. Um, and then you can say, okay, well, play with those proportions. What if you have a kind of more rounded face, but the nose, like you were saying, uh, if you look at oh, I love this stuff. If you look at in this particular one, we're looking at more kind of the uh, Asian features. But if you say, okay, well, maybe I want to take this and make her feel a little bit more African American. What's the difference? What are the structural, skeletal difference between, um, you know, 500 different African American skulls versus 500 different Asian American skulls or Asian skulls, right? And you look at those differences. A lot of what that is, if you look from the profile, uh, the the bottom of the nose and the mouth actually sits quite a ways forward from the from the brow, right? So the brow's like this. They have typically deeper set eyes. I'll leave the eyes alone for now. And then you have. I was not in symmetry. We'll work on that. Typically have lips that are quite a bit bigger, right? So maybe we'll just turn her into African American descent, right? So we say, okay, what are the typical traits that we see? Lips are a little bit bigger, the front of the nose, and the the whole mouth case comes out quite a bit. I'm getting carried away. It's already 3:05. One of the other prominent things is that the nose is usually wider. The nostrils sit quite a bit wider. Oops. So the nostrils sit kind of a bit wider like this. Right? So now we see, like, by understanding the relationships of different elements of the face compared to different elements of the face, you can start then breaking down, well, what makes it look like a certain thing. and you take the common traits of what those characteristics and relationships are for that common thing, and then that's how you make it look like that, right? um, so yeah, she feels a little bit more um, African American now, right? And then you can say, okay, what's maybe Polish? What does Polish people look like? What are the skeletal differences or prominent things um, that make that type of person feel like that? Um, what's a Roman nose? You just look at the shapes of the. I get so lost on these types of these types of conversations. So I apologize. I love this type of analogy and looking at things and relationships. But in a nutshell, that's kind of how you study is you look at the relationships of things compared to the things that are around it, and then what makes those things different from something else that you would see kind of on a regular basis, kind of thing. That makes sense. I feel like that was a pretty massive tangent. Let's hide this real quick. There we go. So she's starting to get there a little bit more. I think it may help not to have super bleached eyeballs. So maybe what we'll do is we'll do like maybe a chrome. Let's try something. Maybe actually a red. So let's do fill object. No, a little way too red. Just a touch of red. There we go. And then we'll go back. Yeah, there's still some pretty big skeletal problems that she has that will get worked out. But yeah, that's probably going to be it for today. I'm a little bit over time. Um, and yeah, we didn't get a whole lot done, but we focused on the face and kind of exploring some of this stuff. But I'll be back in 2 weeks on the next Saturday, and we'll pick up from here, and we'll talk about more fun, cool stuff. Maybe we'll work on trying to finalize the face and get some cool stuff happening there, and then we'll start working on some more secondary detail um, on some of the armor panels and that kind of stuff. So I hope that was informative for you guys. I'm always love talking about those types of things and visual analysis and what makes a thing a thing. So yeah, hope you guys had fun. Thank you for the awesome conversation. I will not pose her. I may just turn her head or tilt her head or something like that, or maybe just kind of move her arm a little bit. But this will probably be the most of the pose, but I would do that at the end. But yeah, some good conversations. Thanks everybody for hanging around today. I would say go and look at ZBrushLive.com, and you can find the previous videos that I did all the way from the very beginning of this. The first episode we actually sat and chatted with Bjorn Hurri, which is the amazing concept artist who did this and a good buddy of mine. So we talked about kind of the inspiration for the character and a little bit more of the mythological-ness that goes behind it, and then blocking stuff out and all of that, all the way up to where we are now. So ZBrushLive.com, check that out. If you're not registered also for the ZBrush Summit, go and register for the ZBrush Summit. There's going to be awesome stuff there. And be sure to also follow the Pixologic Twitch channel here. If you'd like to follow me, I have a Twitch channel. It's just Brendon Isaiah Bengtson. Copy paste is your friend. And I'll be back a couple weeks from now. Yeah, hope you guys had fun. Hope you guys learned a couple things, but most of all, I hope you're inspired to go make your own stuff. So you get out there and you go make some cool shit. Got it? Alright, guys. I will catch you on the next round. See ya.